Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us once again for a webinar. And as Jeff had stated, our monthly series this month is going to be on supported decision-making and self-advocacy. And we are fortunate enough this morning to be able to have George Garcia with us, along with a few youth panelists. And as an introduction for George, he is the executive director of the Southwest Institute for Families and Children. And his work there involves working with the Youth Action Council of Arizona and working to encourage the empowerment of youth with and without disabilities through education and community involvement. And he is going to be leading us this morning in this presentation. And along with him for youth panelists, we have Bill Lucera, Calvin Cook, and we're very happy to be able to have them with us today. And we also have Krista Howard with us, who's come to join as a panelist. So we're happy to have her with us as well. So thank you again, George, so much for being here today and presenting, to our youth. And I'm gonna let you take it away.
Good morning, people. How is everybody? Please feel free to answer whenever you guys want. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about self-advocacy in our lives. And we do have a panel of people that are going to be joining us. They include Bill Lucero, Krista Howard, and Calvin Cook. And they're going to tell you about how self-advocacy has benefited them in their lives. Can we go to the next slide? So the people I just mentioned, Bill, Calvin, and Krista, all belong to a self-advocacy group called the Youth Action Council of Arizona. And their mission is to encourage the empowerment of youth with and without disabilities in an all-inclusive environment through education and community involvement in all aspects of change and advocacy. That's a big mouthful of words that just basically means is that we want to get people with disabilities to be able to make their own choices and live independently in the community and have access to all sorts of things that everybody else has access to. And that's all done through advocacy and making sure that people with disabilities get the rights that they deserve. And the Youth Action Council meets on the first Saturday of every month. We usually meet in person in Phoenix, but because of this whole virus thing, we meet online and we have a Facebook page. You can find us under Youth Action Council of Arizona. And we're always looking for new members, and it's free, and we get together and talk and play and have fun and learn about advocacy. Okay, if we can go to the next slide. So of course, the question is, what is self-advocacy? And at its most basic, it is just telling people what your needs are and what your wants are. I mean, that's something that we do every day in our lives, and it's something that everybody should have a right to do, including people with disabilities. Telling people what you need and what you want, and having those choices respected. It's standing up for your rights. It's standing up for making sure that people don't take advantage of you and ignoring what's rightfully your choice. And then learning to be independent, being able to make decisions for yourself without having others make decisions for you. It's okay if you get help from somebody. It's okay if you have a support person. It's okay if you have a team of supporters, like in supported decision making. But ultimately, it's your right to be independent. It's your responsibility to know what what your rights are, and making sure that you make those choices for yourself, and living with those consequences. Okay, next slide. So we're going to be telling you about a time when we've advocated for ourselves. If anybody wants to share a story at any time, you can tell us about how you've advocated for yourself in any of the areas that we're going to be talking about. So please feel free to raise your hand, and we'll try to make this as interactive as possible. Okay, so if we can go to the next slide. So what are we going to be talking about when we talk about self-advocacy? We're going to be talking about 4 different areas. We're going to be talking about education and how we've advocated for ourselves and the different things that we've done in our lives around education. We're going to be talking about employment and how we've used our advocacy in areas of employment. We're going to be talking about transportation. And then finally, we're also going to be talking about healthcare. And these are the most important areas of anybody's lives, especially people with disabilities. So we're going to be talking about these 4 different. So we're going to be talking about transportation and how that's affected the lives of these people that are going to be talking in the panel. Okay. We're going to be talking about how they've been able to advocate for themselves and being able to use the public systems that are available so that they can get around wherever they need. That's a really big issue. Okay, next slide. So one of the laws out there that affects people with disabilities is known as the IDEA law, or IDEA. And all it says, and it's all legal language, it says, to ensure that all children with disabilities have available to them a free and appropriate public education. That just means that when people with disabilities go to school, they have the right to have the same type of education that anybody else does, and have access to the services they need to make sure that they can get that education with all the accessibility things that they may need, right? So that they can make sure that they can, do what they want to do as far as furthering their education and employment and being independent in their lives. So with that, we're going to talk about education and how our panelists, Bill and Kelvin and Krista, have been affected through education. Okay. And so our first person that's going to be speaking is Bill. Bill, you want to tell us about education?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Hopefully everyone's having a wonderful morning so far. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the presentation so far as well. Again, my name is Bill Lucero. And when I was going through high school, actually before high school, I was actually able to lead my IEP. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys have an IEP, but it is an individual education plan for people with learning disabilities like myself. I have one of those hidden disabilities, but it's still a big one, and it still affects me to this day. And that is actually decoding words and sentences. But I wanted to just talk about how I was able to actually talk to my special ed teacher at the time that I actually wanted to be in regular classes. And this was one of the big first times I actually advocated for myself, because I was always taken out of class when I had to go to my for my IEP meetings or anything special ed related. And it kind of sucked because I was taken out of what everyone else was doing. We were doing projects and everything. And sometimes those meetings can last probably for an hour or two. So I would miss out an hour or two every day just to do a few work and stuff. So if I was behind. So one day I decided I didn't want to do that anymore. So I asked if I could still stay in my regular class and still be able to get the accommodations that I would need for those classes, like either calculator, extra time, or anything else I would have to needed depending on what class I was in. And it took a while for us to actually do that because we had to really think what can we do to actually keep me in class and actually do my work with my friends there as well, because I mean the whole point of my IEP is to help me out with my disability. And uh, what we ended up doing is instead of being taken out for an hour, I would go for 10 minutes, and it'll be either before or after class, and I would say, I had trouble with this. You think, and then, or I need an extra time for my test today. Where can I go? But we ended up doing is I would talk to them. They would say, here's a student that is excelling in the class. You can sit next to them. They can take notes for you. They can help you out with some of the math problems or reading things. And that helped me out so much because it was actually one of my friends. And so, thanks to one of my friends, I was able to actually uh, stay in my class and actually hang out with everyone and still be able to take advantage of my IEP and the extra resources that I would needed. And I kind of did that throughout college, and it was nice. But yes.
All right. We have a comment from Noah, and he says, I've been through that before. In fact, most of us with disabilities have to go through this every time. I know it's hard, but we don't give up still, too.
Yes. Yes.
All
Never
right.
give up.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Bill. Next slide. Next, we have Calvin Cook. Calvin Mykl Cook.
Yes, hi. And good morning. I hope all is well also. And I honestly do not remember much about elementary school, but what I do remember is that I had to advocate me and my mom. My mom helped me advocate when I was younger to be in a regular classroom with the other children. I have a spinal cord injury. My injury happened when I was 6. And I also have a traumatic brain injury. But I felt that I was able to participate well enough in a regular classroom. So that is something I spoke up about, and my mom helped me with that. And I was able to participate in the regular classroom all through my elementary years. I started in 1st grade up through 5th grade. So that was a great experience for me. I also, even though I was able to participate in the regular classroom though, I did need some extra assistance. And that is something that I advocated for, and my mom assisted me with also. I needed some help during lunch with getting my lunch and with handling some of the opening of my lunch, opening some of the packages and stuff like that. And also I needed some help with using the restroom back in the 90s. Medical equipment wasn't as accessible for my needs. So we found a way to get around that by having somebody help me when I needed to use the restroom. And that was very helpful as well. So I just wanted to remind everyone that if you do need help advocating, it is okay to have somebody to help you, like a family member or a friend. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks. Next slide, please.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is my father cousin had brain tumor when she was young, but now she's healthy and still living with her dad. And but her eyes, her left eye, it just keep going up.
Oh, yeah, everybody has different.
Just her left eye though.
Yeah, a lot of people have different disabilities, and
sometimes it's hard to explain it when you have something, an issue like that. Because I really get that. We really get that what he felt actually.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has different things going on. One of the programs that helps people with disabilities is known as Vocational Rehabilitation. And it's just this federal program that provides services to people with disabilities who have a goal of keeping or getting employment. And a lot of young people with disabilities, as they, move on from school and want to get a job and need that support so that they can go ahead and go do that, can turn to this program known as vocational rehabilitation and get these kind of services that they need so that they can, eventually get a job. So if we can go to the next slide. One of the young men, there we go. One of the people that took advantage of that program is Kelvin.
Yes, vocational rehab has been very helpful for me. I started using their services in 2020, before I even when I started using their services, I was not in college yet. So they were helping me figure out what kind of career I would like to do. And we figured out that social work could be something I could be good at. I really enjoy helping people, and I love animals. So we decided to give social work a try. So we decided that I would need to go to college in order to do social work. So that is something I'm doing now. I'm majoring in social work. I've already got my bachelor's and I'm doing my master's now at ASU. And vocational rehab has been helpful in helping me get through college by helping me with some of these things listed on the screen. They help me pay my tuition, so they help me pay for school. They also helped me get a laptop and they helped me get a home computer at one point. I'm not sure if they still do that. This was back in 2011, so I'm not sure if they still do that, but if you need that, then I would definitely advocate and ask for that need. They also help me pay for my books. Books, college textbooks can be expensive, so I'm very happy that they are able to help me with that need. And they also help me with transportation. Before this pandemic started happening, I would travel a lot on public transportation. And one of the things they helped me with for transportation is helping me by paying for and sending me a monthly bus pass so that I can use the city bus and the light rail. I'm not sure if they will do more than that for transportation, but if you need that need, I would definitely advocate for yourself and ask for that need. Thank you.
All right, thanks. If you can go to the next slide. Now, we're going to be talking about employment. Now, probably one of the biggest laws that affects people with disabilities is known as the Americans with Disabilities Act. And that was passed way back in 1990. And it's this law that says that you can't discriminate against people with disabilities. And we have equal rights for all sorts of things in all sorts of areas, including employment and transportation and public accommodations and all sorts of services, right? And one of the things that the ADA, or the Americans with Disability Act, says is that employers must provide reasonable accommodations to employees with disabilities. That means that if you get a job and you need some accommodation so that you're able to do your job, your employer has to provide that accommodation if it's reasonable. And so we're going to be talking about that now with how we've received accommodations in our jobs for those of us who do work. I think Miguel wants to say something before we move on.
Yeah, I just want to say that I feel like I'm autistic myself, high functioning, and I want to say that sometimes I feel like it is hard being autistic because not many people know about your disability that well. It's just that sometimes people can make either many assumptions like, oh, autistic people are super smart, or oh, autistic people are not fully capable, like, which I disagree, because we are in a spectrum. I'm in a high spectrum, but I don't want to be thought as like, super intelligent, like I know everything like that. I kind of find that insulting, even if it's a compliment. I mean, like, I don't want, like, autism to be such a negative term or any connotation, because I've seen like people online use the the word autistic as an insult, and I just think that's just ridiculous. Like, it's supposed to mean something bad or anything like that, but rather it's just really bigotry. Really, it's just ignorance of people to use that word as an insult. I find it as like, I'm proud to be who I am. I was born this way, instead of like being discriminated. Like, it's like I do need like some accommodations, especially with work. Like, I can't just be doing everything by myself. There's nothing bad with getting help.
That's right. That's right, Miguel. I think that that's why we say, we're more than our labels. We're people first, and we need people to realize that we're just like everybody else. We may need a little help somewhere in our lives, but we're more than just what our disabilities. Mackenzie, you have your hand up?
Well, it's Mykl, by the way. I also would agree with that person. Some people can be back then, I think they used to be mean to autism people. I think, I'm not too sure, but I guess it would kind of tailor for them back then.
Absolutely.
And
Okay,
said
go ahead.
said in 2020, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter who you had autism or not. You still had a disability to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if we can go to the next slide. And so Calvin's going to talk to us about accommodations that he's received.
Yes, so I am working right now. It is more of a part-time job, but it's still work. And I'm definitely very happy to have this job. It has given me experience. Every Friday night I host a Zoom meeting like this with some youth with disabilities who have graduated from this program called Arizona Youth Leadership Forum. And we have a meeting like this every Friday night. And we just talk and we hang out. And it's very fun for the youth and for me. I very much enjoy it. I don't receive any big accommodations. I'm more used to accommodation that most of us have on our cell phone, which is the calendar. to keep track and schedule reminders for me to send out the invites for the Friday night meeting, and to also set up and get on the meeting on Friday nights. I have a lot going on in my life. I'm doing a lot in the community, and it's good to have those reminders set on the calendar that is pretty accessible on just the cell phone. Or we have those calendars on our computers. So yeah, it's interesting that we can find those accommodations to help us with work and or school on things that we are already using in our everyday life. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, next slide, please. Next, we have Krista.
My name is Krista Howard. I started working at Gompers in 2017 as an AAC technician. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, I'm currently unemployed. I use self-advocate and I got accommodates like I got more breaks and some things. Like that they made the job up. I made to be sure I got accommodates. Advocate yourself. I did in my supervision and I talk about what I needed. I got a few accommodates. Disability myself, I can pay it forward and help my clients use their AAC devices. Everyone has something to say, let their voices be heard. People with disabilities deserve to make choices, talk to friends and family, express their feelings, wants, needs, desires, dislikes, and advocate for themselves. I assist my clients with getting familiar with their specific AAC devices and have an array of knowledge using various devices. If clients have questions about how to use their AAC devices or any related questions, comments, or concerns, I will do my best to answer them. I also present doing online presentations at conferences and over the internet teaching others all about AAC around the globe. AAC opens many doors. Let us speak. You might miss something. We are smarter than others think, so not underestimate us. Throughout my experiences, both personally and professionally, I can pay it forward and give back. I am going to ASU and working towards educational studies. I hope to pursue a career as a speech-language pathologist assistant. Presume competence, nothing else. Never give up.
Thank you, Krista. And just like, it was mentioned before, sometimes people just think you can't do things because you have a disability, but people just have to see you for who you are, not what your disability is. They shouldn't assume. All right, next slide. One of the big issues that affects people with disabilities is public transportation, or is transportation in general. And the Americans with Disabilities Act requires that the government, any public transportation that's funded by the government needs to be accessible to people with disabilities. And what we're going to talk about is how some of us have been able to use public transportation to get around. If we can go to the next slide. And so Calvin's going to talk to us about how he uses public transportation.
Yes, as I mentioned before, I was using public transportation to get around. I would travel all over the city of Phoenix, where I'm located now, on mainly the bus and the light rail system. The light rail is right there in that picture. And that is what I would use in order to know where I was going safely. I would need to figure out the bus routes and the light rail routes. That is possible to figure out on the internet. So that is how I would figure out a lot of the routes. And then on the bus, I would have to let the drivers know where I'm going. So in that way, I was advocating for myself. Sometimes drivers would forget where I was going, and I wouldn't be able to press the button on the bus for the stop. So I would have to speak up if they were missing my stop. I have advocated for the buses to be made more accessible to some of the people in the community. And I'm hoping that those changes will be made sooner than later. I have mentioned that I'm not the only one who uses the bus and the light rail, and I want to see it made better for others as well. I do not use, I have not ever used the Orbit bus service, but I do know that it is a very useful resource as well. I do believe it's located in Tempe, and it is a free service. I do have a friend with a disability who uses it a lot, and he has had very good experiences with that. So that's another resource for sure. Thank you.
And I think, Calvin.
Calvin.
Yes. Yeah. So as I mentioned, the buses are accessible, but I feel like with using the bus, there needs to be a little more advocating done. I need to speak up more for what I need when using the bus. When using the light rail, I'm able to just get on and I don't need to speak to anybody. But it's different when using the bus. I am familiar with Dial-A-Ride. I have used their services, but it's been a long time. But I do know that they are a good service as well. They are not a perfect service, but I believe that if we as people with disabilities continue to speak up and advocate about what we need, then the Dollar service will continue to get better. I know that there are already a lot of accommodations available with that service in order to make it a little more enjoyable for us. As I mentioned, I have not used that service in a long time. It's actually been over 10 years, but I do have friends that use it. And from some of the things I'm seeing and I'm learning, I'm believing that it is getting better, and it definitely is a resource if you need it. And the best way to advocate in using that service, I believe, is just finding out about it, asking questions, and letting the drivers know what you need when you do use it. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks. I think we have one more area, and please, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to let us know.
Pansy has a question.
Go ahead.
Our friend Patrick, a long time ago was our best friend, and he was in a disability in a wheelchair, and we used to and the bus usually pick him up and pick him up in the chair, like the other side that showed us that how the people get into the bus with their wheelchair.
Yeah, there's different ways of getting around with transportation. They have ramps and lifts and all sorts of things that make it accessible for people with disabilities to get around.
Yeah.
So it's
but our friend Patrick passed away in a house fire.
I'm so sorry.
It was like 6 years ago.
6 or 5 years ago. His
little brother was playing matches
and
he caused the fire.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, if anybody else has any questions, please feel free to let us know. The last area that we're going to talk about is healthcare. And people with disabilities are encouraged to speak up for themselves. You have every right to speak up for yourselves in all areas of your lives, including healthcare. And especially if you have your own rights once you're 18, you know, you're going to be having to make these decisions for yourselves because you'll be adults. If you do not have a guardian that's going to be making decisions for you. So it's important to speak up for yourself even in healthcare.
You're 20.
And so, but yeah, it's important to let your doctors know what you need and how you feel. So with that, we'll turn it over one more time to Calvin, I believe.
Yes, yes, so, nowadays, I go to a lot of my doctor's appointments by myself. It's been a process. I had to learn what my needs are, and I need to remember what new needs I have. For the longest time, I would have my mom go with me to the doctor's office, and I still do have her go with me to some of my appointments in order to help me with some of the things I need help with, such as transferring on and off of the hospital bed or whatever. But as George mentioned, we are able to speak for ourselves. A lot of the times, doctors or people that work at the place where our appointment is at, a lot of those people do not speak to us, us people, sorry, us people with disabilities. But we do have the right to speak for ourselves and answer what questions are being asked about us. I know in order for me to answer those questions, though, and to have that opportunity to speak for myself, I need to figure out my needs. And I need to figure out what it is that I desire, what it is that I want. And I know that can be a process, but we are allowed that time have that opportunity to figure out what it is that we want, and we are able to express that. So I just want to remind everyone that that is our right, to speak to the medical professionals, and it is a good practice to practice. So I definitely encourage anyone who wants to be more independent and be more of an advocate for themselves to practice.
All
Yeah.
right, well, thank you so much.